All right. Looks like I finally got this working. Okay. Okay. Okay, so hopefully this time you can find it. I was trying to stream through, instead of OBS, I was trying to stream through Minicam, and I don't know. It was saying I didn't have enough bitrate. Hopefully it was because I hadn't turned off any of my other, laptop. Stop it from using the internet. So, okay, hopefully, hopefully this will be fine. Okay, so I am just really, this is just a painting just for me, but I just wanted everybody to be able to see how I am doing this background, and it is extremely complicated. I haven't done a background this complicated in a while, so when I started it a few days ago, I felt like I had never picked a paintbrush up before. So, but now I'm feeling in the groove. So, okay, I'm going to switch down so you can see where I'm at. So I'm working on this little area right here, and hopefully you can see it in that image. But it's very soft and it's very light. And what I need to try to do is keep that glow around these edges. And so I've been kind of working in here and trying to start building those darker values. And then I've got this area right over here where there's a lot of green and a couple of really dark areas. So, okay, I'm going to start. So what I was doing is I was completely wetting everything, and I have to stop wetting it now because, or wetting the whole thing, because there is a lot going on in this area, and I don't want these purples blending out. I don't want anything to dull out. So I'm going to start with my number 2, and I'm going to go over here. I'm going to wet this little area right here. Just making sure I can see it on my image. I actually have a new monitor. I'm pretty excited about that. Only because it's just a little bit easier for me to kind of see what I'm doing. So I can have my image over on one monitor, and I can paint and teach with this monitor, my regular monitor. I'm not ready to go over there because I want to kind of concentrate on this area. Oh, and you're not seeing my palette because I'm using my plate. And usually when I'm doing a big painting, I like to have my palette right in front of me. Oh, and feel free, ask me questions if you want. I'm trying to keep that purple. Actually, let's enlarge this just a little bit. There we go. That way you can really see what I'm doing. Okay, to me right now this looks pretty messy, so I will be using my scrubber brushes quite a bit here. Because I have to slowly build up all these colors. I'm just kind of staying in the center of these areas. That definitely needed to be darker. What's nice is now that I've got it to this point, I can take my brush, just come right along the edge and soften it and blend it out. And that's why these are hard. I mean, I put a lot of detail in my background, so it's hard. It's hard for me. I shouldn't say hard. That's challenging. It's challenging. And I get crazy into details. And I'm just pushing the color around where I want it to go. And I can see I'm going to have to soften that little area right there. It's coming too far out into that red. And, you know, it never works. Or I shouldn't say it never works. I try really hard to keep these little white areas, but it doesn't always work. So I'm just going to keep building more and more color. Right here is where I really need to concentrate. Okay. Yeah, that looks really funky, but I'm going to smooth it out because I have enough color right in that area. And I can see I need some yellow. It's going to make a huge difference too when I make some of those white spots really white. And then, you know what's funny? I'll be really stressing it and then all of a sudden I'll look and I'll go, it's starting to come together. And for a while I'll kind of not really get into a panic mode, but I'll get a little bit worried. Because it just doesn't seem, it'll just kind of seem like it's just not looking smooth. But then that's where my my scrubber brushes really come into play. See, I'm gonna have to scrub out that little spot right there, but that is a lighter area. And here's another mistake I did. I can't believe I did this. Sometimes when you first put your initial layer of water down, if you don't lighten up your little circles where you're going to put your little highlights or your edges, then you really have to scrub them out. So, yeah, that's okay. And you're going to see me, I try not to do this in my tutorials, but you're actually going to see me kind of jump around a little bit here and there and go back, smooth things. Like I see a lot of purple right down in this area. And at the same time, you're realizing that you have to keep, some areas have got to be you know, really saturated. Some areas have got to be very dull. So you're constantly having to make these judgment calls, all while the paper is kind of still nice and soft and wet. And that's why I kind of do little tiny areas at a time. So it's starting to get there. It's getting there. I can see right in that area. I'm going to have to soften it with the scrubber brushes. At this point, this may sound a little weird, but it's almost like I sketch with my paintbrush. See, now I'm gonna blending out that color a little bit. And that needs a lot more yellow. And see how everything starts to deepen in value and in saturation. I think that's where, and I know I've talked about this a lot, but it's that weird point where you think that this is just not looking right and you want to give up. And sometimes I experience that too, and then I just realize, okay, I just need to keep going and keep building those values. See, like right there. That needed way more of that purple. Oh, and I'm using Quinacridone Magenta, Phthalo Blue green shade, and I picked green shade because I want to really get those vibrant greens. Now I need a little bit of red right around this edge, and again, I'll have to soften that up with some scrubber brushes. I use these scrubber brushes a ton when I'm doing my backgrounds. You're going to see that in a minute. Now see, right away I want to put some yellow along that edge. And I'm softening. Oh, I hope you don't mind asking me. Your earlier work included other paints, also like more purples or pinks, and you painted gorgeous paintings also with more colors. Why did you decide to use only 3? Well, I didn't, on my earlier ones, I actually didn't use a lot of colors. If I did add a color in, it would have been like a red or would have been a warm and a cool blue, or a warm and a cool red. But honestly, and most artists will tell you this, they even kind of stick with a limited palette. And a limited palette doesn't have to mean 3 colors. It could totally mean a yellow or 2 yellows, 2 reds and 2 blues. So they call that a split primary palette. But honestly, the more I paint, the more I limit, and I almost completely stick with 3 colors. Like you can see, I'm really starting to build the value in here. Need a little bit of dark right around this area. And this, when I'm teaching my tutorials, I don't go into this level of detail because, you don't necessarily have to, but I like to. See how I just added more color there, but I'm also keeping in mind how wet this paper is. Like, I don't have to look to the side at it at this point. I know it's still damp enough. Like, look at this. Right here, this is what I wanted to get. I wanted to get that nice, deep, soft blend, because that's gonna help bring out all these dark colors around all those light areas. softening with the brush. I think what I need to do is stop and make up some more burnt sienna. So I can... Okay, that looks really terrible right now, but it's going to look good here shortly. And lots of yellow. See, and I can, that color's creeping through there. So I'm going to add yellow to kind of push it all back over into that area and just try to keep that in mind. Just adding some yellow over here in this area. Okay, I'm going to mix up in the center of my plate. I'm going to mix up some burnt sienna. What I did before I really got started was I took, over here in the corner, I took all three of my colors and I squeezed them out on another plate and I mixed them, and then I picked it up and put it over there for my dark value because I knew I'm going to be using a lot of dark values in this area. Okay, so I need a lot more red over here. Oh my gosh, look at that. Isn't that just gorgeous? That's what I needed. And so also coming over here and making more of a better yellow green. It's starting to run out. And I just need to pull this yellow so I don't have to keep wetting it. Okay. Now see, I have some lines left there, but that's okay. Oh, here's something else I do. You're probably wondering, like, why do I make those circles? So what I try to do is come in to the inside of these circles, okay? And then I scrub it out. That way, okay, so for instance, if I only make the edge right along where my line is, then I have to scrub out a bigger circle. And I really pay attention to those highlights so that I don't make any of them too familiar. I don't want them all the same size, if that makes any sense. I want them to all be different. So I pay close attention to that. Now I just made another nice, beautiful purple because I'm going to add a little bit of that again back in this area. And I need a little bit more of that green. So now you're really honestly seeing how I do these crazy, super, super detailed areas. I honestly don't have any tricks. It's just a lot of practice. I'm just working on building those values in saturated areas, I should say. See, that's too far over into there. For me, might not be if you were painting it. To me, this is what makes backgrounds magical. So when you put all this crazy detail in there and you look like you're peering through just this forest of this like little tiny miniature forest of like little stems and leaves. Oh, see, now I'm getting down. Now I'm really getting in to the green area. See, that needs a lot of dark right there. But I haven't quite got there yet, so I know it's going to be really dark. So I'm okay with kind of letting it sit for a minute. And now I can use all that beautiful burnt sienna I made. Too much water. Now I need a lot of yellow. See how I'm pushing it back up into that corner? Just pushing that direction with my my paintbrush. And I know I've said this a lot, and for anybody who's watching me, truly I'm not, you are seeing everything I do. I don't feel like, I really don't feel like there's anything I have to hide. I don't know why anybody would anyhow. We're all going to paint different, and it's a journey for all of us. And I am so thrilled when I see people that can take something that I've taught them and they just create something really cool. I mean, that's what being an artist is about. So far, so good. Now that I'm looking over there, that needs more. That needs to be much darker. And that was too light, too wet, that purple. See how that purple is hitting this green? It's making just a nice blend. I need more. And sometimes what I do is when I feel like the color is moving too far that way, I just add some yellow and it pushes the color back. See how gorgeous it is when you add good values? Things just really start coming forward and See, I'm just kind of curving my brush around this little area. I'm trying to trying to find a clean green that I mixed on my palette. Okay, there we go. And then once this dries, you're going to see how I'm going to pull those lighter areas out. I just saw one of those comments. I forget how to pronounce your name. I'm so sorry. If it was me painting, I would probably finish it in 2 years. Okay, so that is actually one of the reasons why it would be, well, of course, I could say, all right, we are going to take a week and we are going to do just a section. I'm going to show you how to paint this, this background. But as long as you're watching me paint one little area, that really is just showing you this is my technique. This is how I do this. See how I keep going back? And I still feel like that's a really weird area right there. So I'm going to, there we go. And I still keep going over there into that area. So I'm going to scrub that out. I'm not always, trust me, I'm not always successful. And I suppose in the end it doesn't really matter, but it matters to me. If it didn't, I suppose I wouldn't get my backgrounds the way I do. Okay, let's just soften all that. A little bit more yellow. See this, you can see it's rising a little bit, so you can see how much water has really soaked into this paper. And there's a point here right now where, well, I think I can get over into this area. Just kind of wetting it. I kind of made a hard edge with that water right there, but as I get over onto that back petal and I darken a little bit, then I'll be able to take my brush, kind of blend it out a little bit. Okay, so I'm feeling better about this. You see how oops. Okay, let me add a little bit of yellow. There we go. So see how that really brightened this area. So I've got some bright areas. I've got some dull areas. I've got some very saturated areas. And then here again, I will that has a lot of red in it right there. I don't know what I was going to say. Somebody remind me what I was saying. I don't know. trying to corral that color. Hey, that's a good word. I'm gonna try to use that from now on. Trying to corral that color and keep it all in that area. And if you find an area has, well, I should say, if I find an area where it almost looks like it's starting to develop a little edge of a bloom, I just hit it with some color or water. And I try to make sure that that water matches how much water is on the paper. That actually takes a long time to learn. I mean, not a long time, but you know, you've got to paint a lot. It's going to soften that yellow or that green. See how that kind of makes that edge of that petal right there? That's going to really stand out when I start painting the petals. Now again, I'm going to soften that. And that needs a lot of yellow. I want that little area right there to really glow. Beautiful. I love it when things work out, and that made, just look at that edge right there. That's really nice. So instead of finishing that, that's making me nervous right there. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to dry it. So if you want to ask me some questions, if you want to ask me some questions while it's drying, I'm going to back this out. So we can see how that's developing. I want to mention something here too. This is where I think people run into problems. You dry it a little bit and you go, oh, well, that feels dry. You have seen how much water I have put in that. Trust me, that water is really, it is sunk deep down in that paper. Oh, this is where I get so excited too. So now that I've backed it out, I know that this whole area is white, but can you already see how the depth of the background. And even though this petal right here is way out of focus, it's gonna still look like it's in front of this background. So I am just slowly and carefully building depth. Okay, I'm gonna roll up my sleeves here. Ooh, this is the part I love. This is my favorite part. Because here's where I really feel like it just all starts coming together. Okay, let me zoom back in. Let's go a little bit closer. All right. So hopefully you can really see what I'm talking about. Like, so there's no color yet in these petals, but already you can see that it looks like these are forward and that's pushed way in the background. Okay, so I'm gonna move my water over. I've got a nice clean bowl of water here. And I'm gonna go ahead and grab my scrubber brushes. Again, if you've seen me before, I'm using my Dick Blick Wonder White, my favorite scrubber brushes. And I need a new fresh, I want a nice clean paper towel. You want to make sure you have a good paper towel that really can soak up water and paint. Okay. You know what? I'm going to actually start with an even smaller one and pull out those highlights that I'm seeing. Okay, I'm using lots of water. So I'll actually have like a bubble of water there. I try to keep and hold my scrubber brushes straight up and down. A lot of people really struggle with this, but don't mash your scrubber brush down hard. And trust me, I have tried probably 10 different scrubber brushes. And look at what a nice, beautiful, let me zoom in a little bit more. Maybe, let's see, let's see how close I can get. Ooh, that's nice and close. Okay, oops, let's see. All right. Again, I have a bubble of water and I'm just almost barely touching that paper. I don't want to jam the brush down in there. And instead of staying in one spot, as I circle and circle and circle, I go, maybe I could show you this way. Circle, 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 go in, come back out again, gently, and then back in. That's how you get those nice, almost airbrushed, feathered edges. Now I'm going to do a second spot. I was looking at the image, and I don't really like how I did those spots. They're a little bit too hard edged in my image. So I'm actually really softening their edges. So again, you can see tons of water here. And I know it's hard to see, but I'm actually going bigger and bigger and bigger, and then right in the center. If you don't do that, you'll get this really hard spot. Oh, it's gonna look beautiful. Let's see, Luna, Debbie, where do you get your reference pictures from? They're very beautiful. I have a lot of people that will send me pictures, and on Facebook, There's this one artist. Her name is, and I hope I am not butchering up her name, but her name is Ilyona Stefan. And she has the most beautiful images. And so I get a lot from her. I take a lot of them. Sometimes if I'm at the grocery store, my first stop will be the floral department. And I'll see if there's anything there that I could use. In fact, I just bought all these gorgeous, beautiful fabrics. Believe it or not, found them at Walmart. They were Better Homes and Gardens, so they were already cut, and I grabbed 5 of them because they have just gorgeous paisley patterns, and my gosh, they're just beautiful. And so what I want to do is try some different things like the flowers laid down on the fabric. I think that would just be an absolute fun tutorial to do. Almost like the way I did that teacup. Okay. See how gentle I was? And instead of taking this scrubber brush, and I've picked up a little bit of the paper, instead of just scrub in this big long line and making this ugly mark, I've just gently picked out color right inside of it. Now, see this area that I was really bothered about earlier? Okay, again, I think you can see that the bubble of water, if I lift it up, there you go. There was like a little shine. Lots of water. So I have to feather out all this green because I don't like it right there. So I'm picking that water up, or I'm picking that paint up. And I might actually even go, the bigger you go on the brushes, the softer they get. So there's a really soft edge right there. And I'm serious when I say I use these as much as I use my other brushes. See, I don't know how I got that little line in there. That's just bugging me. I wanted it to be a nice yellow spot. So I'm going to try very carefully. Watch what I do here. And it probably won't work because you're watching me. Okay. Okay, so I must have pressed too hard with a pencil something because there is a little mark there. But what I'm going to do is while it's still wet, there's a lot of water right there, I'm going to go pick up some yellow, some nice clean yellow. See how I dropped that in there? And I'm kind of feathering it out. Okay. Now I'm going to fix this little area over here. And yes, I was just looking at a question. I scrub days later, and a lot of times I'll see something else that I think might need to have some color pulled out of it. And you know, I'm sure there are artists out there that can do backgrounds like this and they don't have to do any scrubbing, but that's not me. I find I get overwhelmed if I feel like I have to try and soften everything and blend out those edges right as I'm painting. I love scrubber brushes. I don't, I feel like I'm painting, but painting backwards. And there's always this idea, too, that you can't get your white back. Well, you can see, and of course I've tried to drill this into everybody, I'm using very staining colors, so it almost seems like, I don't know what the word would be. Like on one hand I say you want staining colors so that you can paint over them and they don't lift. And they're, you know, very transparent, so all the other colors come through. But at the same time, I can then go back and lift the colors. But it does take some work to lift them. And I know I've heard some people say, well, you can't lift them back to white. Well, it's very obvious that I can. And look what happened. I wasn't paying attention, and my yellow came back and got right into that little highlight that I made. So there we go. I just pulled it back out again. And now I'm going to take that bigger brush and here's what I want to do. Bigger. Very lightly. I just want to take out a tiny bit. I'm always, always, always thinking about value. Okay. That spot's bugging me, but I'm just gonna let it go for now. I can get obsessive sometimes about it. You know, it just has to look a certain way to me. But you know what? I guess that's okay. Otherwise, I wouldn't be the painter that I am. And I wouldn't have been able to share everything that I have learned with you. That needs to be a little bit bigger. And now here, I'm going to let that water stay. I'm not going to pick that water up. And maybe, actually shouldn't be over in this area. I should go ahead and stop and let it dry. But see how you can't see my lines anymore? They're pretty much gone. And I'm going to pick up this brush and just soften that area. And I don't want it to go over into that little white area. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and dry again. Let's zoom out. So look at now how those little highlights just really brought everything out. And now I can see that if I make these areas darker and get those darks right in there, and I need to get some more darks right in there, and then that's really going to make those come forward. It's going to really make them pop. Okay, I want to get that one little spot right there. Kind of forgot about that little area. Oops. Come on. Why is it not? Let's see. Okay, there we go. Now imagine what's going to happen when we get those petals. And I get the color in those petals, and I have that gorgeous little area of white right along the edge of those petals. Oh, it's going to be stunning. I can already feel it. Okay. I want to fix again. Very soft. There's still a little bit of a line there. There we go. And you can also see over in this area with this yellow, I lost some of the highlight there. And look at how that just glows. I love that. And then I'm just picking up some color right from this area. I don't know how artists just can put down the correct value right as they paint. I can't do it. You know what? Let's get some of that green that came over in that area. So really, if you're, obviously if you're here, you're watching, but you can see how just subtle, gentle strokes with those scrubber brushes. Oh, and look at that area. I forgot that right there. Some of my green, I wasn't paying attention. And it came over into that red. So you know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to grab my brush. I'm going to grab some nice clean yellow. I'm adding it in right where I scrubbed out. Nice. Okay, let's see. I think I need, and again, I think I had said this earlier, I need more yellow right along this edge. And I know that you've probably heard you have to get all your yellow down right away because it's so transparent, it's so light. But Nickle yellow is an extremely strong yellow, especially when it's very thick. So I'm putting down some yellow, and now I'm going to go pick up, and here's what I love. So now my purple has dried a little bit, and so now I can pick up a really strong concentration. I can drop it right in there. Pick up a little bit more. And you always have to keep in mind too that your color, it gets lighter as it's drying. I'm gonna put some red right around where I scrubbed. See, you can totally scrub out. You can scrub out and go over it. But if you scrub hard and you really, scrub up that paper, it's a little bit harder to do. So now it looks like I have like another nice little highlight in there. Okay. Now I'm going to grab some yellow and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to make it a little bit of a yellow green. Okay, now watch. Let's see, let me make it a little bit greener. And I'm just making sure that it doesn't go too far into that area that I remember when I scrubbed that out a little bit. So now I'm like trying to make all those little beautiful little edges of whatever's back there. See, now I'm kind of making another very, very light Let me add a little bit of a duller green. See, it's barely there, but you can see it. And so that's what I do when I'm finally getting towards finishing up a little area. Remember how I kind of scrubbed a little bit over there too? Again, I'm just softening. There is so much you can do. You just have to think outside that box and just try things. And again, I don't want to let that purple go too far up into that area, so I'm kind of pulling it this way. I just picked up some blue, which helped dull that down a little bit, because I really need some dark value to really start spreading over into that area. Sorry if my big head got in the way. It's like the older you get, your eyesight just really starts changing. Sometimes I have to get down really close. Okay, so I got to worry about that edge right there. But you know what? This is darker, so I know that it looked like I made a hard edge, but that's okay. I'm just going to soften it out. And I just have to keep building that little area. Okay, I'm going to turned my palette around so I could really grab some of that dark green. Just found another area I could make a little highlight right there. See, that needs to be a lot darker. So I'm gonna, so what I did was I picked up some of the burnt sienna that I made. Now I'm gonna pick up yellow and feather it right into that burnt sienna. Soften that edge again. I could even actually make another circle right on top of that circle if I want. But I think I'm just going to leave that alone for now. I'm going to tone that down with some burnt sienna. See, and it's coming into my little circle I made. Oh, darn it. All right. Ooh, I like how that's turning out. Look at that nice little hard edge. I mean, you can barely see it, but it makes a difference. Let's see. Hi, Shannon. Both Shannon B and Shannon H says hi. Hi. a wonderful way to get to know people is through art. I don't, if you didn't, if you didn't hear me when I first started on this, I have not been doing a lot of super detailed backgrounds. So when I first picked up my brush and I had picked it up on the other end, I felt like I had never painted in my life. It was actually kind of funny. Oh, look at that. See? Look at how just by adding that yellow, how it brought in depth and nice saturation. Now I'm going to be very careful, but I'm going to pick up some of my my phthalo blue green shade. So now I really have, complementary colors. I have my greens and my reds. I have purples and yellows. I have really, really dark values and really, really light areas. And that's what is going to make it really stand out by the time I get completely finished with this. Okay, let's back out. Oh, that is looking so good. Ooh, the only thing I can see that I want to do. There we go. I just added a little bit more yellow right in that area. So now I'm going to dry it again. So I want everything to stay where I put it. Yeah, Shannon, I will zoom in. Here, I'll make that, let me scoop I'll make that a little bit bigger. Oops, I just moved the wrong thing. Gosh darn it. Ah. Oh. There we go. Here, I'll move it up out of the way. There we go. Now you can see that little area right there that I'm painting. Let's see if I can... No, that's about all I can do with it right now. Okay. Okay, I know I'm basically patting myself on the back here, but that is just going to be stunning. It's so pretty with the way I have a little bit of glow. And actually, I'm going to come back over here. Just pick up a tiny bit more. Maybe a little bit over here. Why? Because again, I'm looking at value change everywhere. I'm always paying attention to value. Value is your workhorse. Value is the foundation. It's the most important part of your painting. Okay, let me get my brushes in order and let me dry that a little bit more. Charlie May, Debbie, will you ever offer this as a full pay-for class? Yes, I will. But I want people to see what you really get into when you do a deep dive into a background. You know, and everybody's background is always going to look different, but when you really, really, really want to get that just deep, you know, out of focus effect, this is what it takes. And thank you. I think it's actually going to be beautiful too. I am so excited. I mean, seriously, look at everything in that background. That is a lot. And again, remember, when you are soaking your paper over and over again with paint and water, dry it well. In fact, wait for a few seconds after you're done with your hair dryer so that you can feel if the paper is still cool. Okay, so I think what I'll do is I'll let that dry, and I'm going to really zoom out. I'm gonna move some things around because I have a special camera, so you can really see a very expensive good camera so that you can really see up close. I'm gonna try to zoom out as far as I can. Now this is a big painting, and I'm gonna take my paint off for a minute. I'm going to take this off because I want you to see. Let me move. Whoops. I did it again. Let's see the image. Let me move that kind of off screen for a minute. And I'm going to turn this around now. So we can look at it from this angle. And look at that. You can really see now how these petals are just going to lift right off the paper. They really are. It's those nice subtle blends. It's going to look so good. And then, of course, coming over this direction, it's really, really going to be a lot of work because it's really deep and dark over there if you look at that image when I pull it back over again. I did it again. Okay, let me center that. We go to the image, and you can really see over in this area how it's going to be deep and dark. And when that gets dark, this is going to stand out even more. Sorry, you can't see what I'm actually pointing at. So it's going to really make this background stand out a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back around. Okay, let's... Okay. Now I can work on this beautiful petal, and if you look at my image, let's pull it over here, you can really see that it's dark, or it's kind of in shadow, but it's still bright. And so I want to really make sure that I don't, well, I want it to be in shadow a little bit, but I want to make sure that I keep this really, really bright area. And even though this is in shadow, I don't want to lose the saturation in there because that's really pretty. Oh, Shannon, what size paper? I am actually painting this on an 18 by 24 sheet. And as you can see on the edge, I flipped it over. I made my little rolls of tape and then taped it down to my gator board and then really, really taped it down well. And I've never had a problem using just regular masking tape. Number one, it's cheaper and it comes off easy. I've actually had it on paintings for a year. I try not to make my paintings go a year. But yeah, I don't know if it works as well on a 140 pound, but I know on the 300 pound paper I use that I have never had it rip my paper up. So yeah, let me move that image just up a little bit more. There we go. Okay. So I thinking for a minute here. Oh, let me scoot up a little bit. There we go. I think what's going to help me, just so I can see that value a little bit better, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wet this area. I'm going to come down into those beautiful background, probably buds. Need to get my paint back. And this is a good reason why I try not, when I'm doing the tutorials, that why I can't really paint too big, because it's very hard to get up close and move things around, and also for you to see my palette, which you can't in this one, obviously, because I have it right so that I can just go back and forth quickly between the colors. Ooh, whoops, I don't know why I grabbed red. I meant to grab yellow. Okay. Okay. So Shannon, I know that you love the hot press paper. I honestly have tried hot press once, and I just really struggled with it. It just seemed to go everywhere. I didn't feel like I had a lot of control, although I do know artists that they, feel like they have plenty of control over it. They just really have to soak it in. There's an artist out of Australia, and she will wet it, let it dry a little bit, then wet it again. I don't have much patience for that. So I really want to keep that away from that edge. So I'm trying to pull the paint that way. And I think I'm adding a little bit of that burnt sienna that I made to that green. Actually, I need more yellow. Trying to be very careful not to get too close to that beautiful yellow edge. I'm going to grab some purple. And a little bit of red. Sometimes what I do, if I feel like I don't want to mess up an edge, even though obviously you've seen me go ahead and just scrub it out. I'll not wet it. I'll just go ahead and paint it, and then I'll let it dry, and then I'll soften it. I don't do that too often, but I've been pretty good about keeping it away from that area. Ooh, see, now look what happens when you darken it. That really, I mean, it looks almost like it's a blinding sort of a white. And that's, you know, so you can't paint lighter than white. All right, wait, let me say that again. You can't paint lighter than the light. Like say it's light coming in through a window, right? You can't get lighter than natural light. So how you make that really stand out, like say a candle, or you know, you're painting an inside window and you have sunlight coming in, or this, you have to paint whatever is next to that light color, you have to paint it darker. There's no other way that you can get that really bright value. And that's not me, that's kind of science. Or color theory. Okay, I'm thinking. All right. Okay, I'm getting down into that red. So I'm just very gently, I need to wet that. I need to grab a little bit of, I grabbed a little bit of that magenta. And then pushing everything that way. I need to find some clean magenta. See how much water is on the paper? You can see it with my brush. See how the water is staying attached to my brush. And as soon as I lift my brush, it lets the water and the paint go. Now I'm going to have to carry that water all the way down. And over a little bit. Which is good because that gives that area time to let that water sink in a little bit so I can come back and darken some of that purple and that green without it spreading down too far. So now what I want to do, because that area is pretty red, or pretty wet, so I'm taking my brush and just pulling off the paint from the tip. And something else to keep in mind when you're painting and you're doing a wet and wet, as your brush hairs are depositing paint onto the surface, it's also sucking up water. So you keep going and you get paint and you drop it. So pretty soon you're actually dropping a lot of water and paint. So every once in a while you have to go over and pull some of that water off. See, I'm kind of pushing it around. So it's kind of sitting on the surface. I'm cleaning my brush. You know, and here's the interesting thing about the color. I could, and I know this question was asked earlier, I could easily add in Quinacridone Rose. But you know what? I can easily lighten that up by just adding a little bit of yellow. And it's just so much easier than having to think about a lot of different colors when I'm painting, because I can get confused pretty quick. Now, I'm not saying that you have to stick with the three colors, but while you're learning, keep it simple. You have enough going on in your head without having to think about having a split complementary, or I'm sorry, a split primary palette that you're dealing with. Like say if you were to use a warm and a cool yellow, a warm and a cool red, and a warm and a cool blue. Keep it simple. Concentrate on value. Concentrate on building color, because you'll know when a painting is wrong because it won't have enough value. You can mess the color up and have a beautiful value structure, and that painting is still going to look good. But it's not going to happen the other direction. And that's when you usually want to give up. You're just not sure what's wrong. So you just think, this painting is boring, it looks terrible. Well, almost 99% of the time when I help people with their paintings, it's usually the value. So I'll pull it into, a Photoshop program, we'll adjust the values, and usually right away, that painting went from, kind of to just stunning. So always keep that in mind too when you're painting. And that's why it's so hard. When you first start, when you first are getting these colors and values laid in, you want to give up so quickly. You're just thinking, this is just not looking right. Just like how I felt over in this area. At first it was like, is this going to come together? And then, ta-da! All of a sudden, it starts coming together. And then you kind of breathe a sigh of relief. And then you think, I can do this. Yeah. Now wait till that dries and I put a thin line of that yellow along there. That is going to make this white area really, really come forward. Okay, let me grabbing some of my light green mixture. This might not be wet enough over here anymore. So I'm adding water, but here's what I'm doing. If you're not confident and you're trying to paint a background, don't do that unless you look. I'm looking to the side, and I'm making sure, as I'm lifting up some of that water that I just put down, that it's exactly the same sheen as what's going on in here. And if you struggle with that, that's okay. Whoops, I don't know why I grabbed red. I need more green. Okay. Gotta move my image over a little bit. Boy, I really thought I was going to struggle with showing how I do my backgrounds, because I really haven't ever got into it this detailed in a live stream. I was afraid I was going to completely... Oh, see right there? See how I've got a little bit? That water was still too wet, and what did it do? It sucked right over into this area that wasn't as wet. So all I did was just kind of soften it a little bit. There we go. Let's soften this area. Now I'm going to quickly come back up into this area. Oh, see, that means I'm going to have to scrub that out a little bit up there, but that's okay. Okay, I should stop here and dry it quickly because I've got a couple of different sheens going on, so I'm going to quickly dry this. I'm just pulling it over a little bit now so we can see that and how it's kind of blending in with this and what this little back petal is going to look like. I don't have to completely dry this area. I just don't want the, really wet sheen to again blossom into the drier sheen. So as long as I get it all back to an even sheen, I'm okay. Okay, I feel like that's enough that I can come over here. I'm going to let it cool off a little bit before I start back on this one. So I'll read some questions. Let's see. Shannon B is saying, I don't know if I love it. I'm just learning and trying to figure it all out. I don't have the issue you mentioned, though. It seems to stay where I put it okay enough. That's good. And that probably has a lot to do, too, with the fact that you started with hot press. I think we tend to get stuck in our ways, and I definitely have. Gosh, I should learn to use different paper, but I just just don't feel like I want to try to learn something new right now. So, but I'm glad it's working for you. And let's see, so much patience required to get. Yes, it is. You do have to be patient. You have to go slow, watch. It can be stressful sometimes because I might have to stop and go on to a different area because you're hyper vigilant about the water. Where is the water? Has it sunk in too much? Do I have time to go from here to here? So yeah, it can seem a little it takes a lot of patience. And let's see. How do you make sense out of all these out of focus shapes? I don't know. That's a good question. I guess I'm looking at the image and, it never turns out exactly the way the image is, but sometimes I'll see something. Like I may come back over here and go, ooh, right here, I want to soften. I just really want that highlight right there to stand out. So I'll just look at things as I'm going along. And I'll kind of just make judgments as I'm painting. So I don't know. I guess sometimes it's just one of those things where you just really get into it as you're painting, and pretty soon you're in the zone. I'm taking some really clear, clean yellow right now, and watch what I do. Let me zoom in so that you can really see this. Oh, it might not let me zoom in that close. This is already pretty close. I mean, you can see my giant finger there. Okay. So I'm going to take that yellow. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I probably will fix that later. I'm going to get it a little bit thicker and see what happens. Oh, you know what? It's so hard. For some reason, it just looks so different on film. Yellow is just one of those weird colors that it's hard to really see. But boy, I just really upped the saturation on that edge. So now what I'm going to do to really, really make that stand out, and this is called halation. It's when light shines, obviously like this is, from behind that petal or leaf. And I'm going to grab, you know what? I actually need a smaller brush. This is my 5/0 brush. So this thing is very, very tiny. And do I have that? Okay. So I'm gonna grab a tiny bit of that magenta and the yellow. So what's gonna happen here, I'm gonna try to put it on that side of this petal. And that red mixed with a little bit of that yellow, and it's a little bit harder to see on what I'm painting, but it is just going to really bring that forward. It's just going to, because your eye is now competing against the opposite, the complementary color of that green, which is the red. So it really makes it jump forward. That's a little trick I learned from Linda Stevens Moyer. She's out of California on the coast, and I love her work. She kind of paints the way I do. It's very, what would be the word? She will start with yellow. She'll paint the whole painting in yellow, and then she goes to the reds, and then she goes to blues and greens, and then that's how she builds her values. I just softened that a little bit, and now I have to that was not dark enough. You know, I saw that Shannon had said, I don't know if I have enough patience for that. You know, when I was raising kids and, you know, working, I worked as a graphic artist, and, you know, I just felt like I never had enough time for anything. Just rush, rush, rush. And I love the fact that I can take the time to do this. I just get into that zone, and I just get into my happy place. And I feel like each little area I do is almost, it's like its own little painting. Not everybody's that way. Not everybody wants to paint the detail that I do. But that's what makes us all different artists, right? See how instead of wetting it, I just added in the color, and then I just slowly am blending it out. Soften it again. And I'm not going to worry about that edge right there, because I'll get that green in there in a little bit. But look at how now that I've built up those values, how it really makes that come forward. And then sometimes I'll come back in, like I'll be doing this, but I'll be looking over there and going, ooh, I'm going to add more yellow right in that red. Okay, what do we have going on down in this area? Ooh, that's pretty. There's just a little spot of blue right in there. Pretty soon I'm gonna have to clean this palette. All these little spots of color everywhere, but that's what happens when you do a really busy, ooh, yikes. A really busy background. Okay. A little bit of that magenta mixed with a little bit of yellow. Okay, now I'm going to have to be quick. Kind of turning my brush to the side. Can fan out all that color. Whew. Just blending that edge. And obviously, I'm going to have to use my scrubber brush. Get some soft blends. My yellow keeps pushing away some of those areas, so I'm not gonna add the yellow right now. I'm just gonna go ahead and concentrate on that magenta. And then once it dries, then I'll come back and I'll add in some yellow on top of it. I love that about Nickel yellow. It pushes other colors away, so if you feel like you're getting stuck, it's great for that. It'll push those other colors away. I want to soften this because it would be really hard to go back into this area and try to soften those colors because there's a lot of pigment in that area. So you see how I just, as the pigment is building up, the more it builds up, the more it starts to stay on the surface of the paper. It's sinking in, but also some of it is staying on the surface. I mean, there's only so much your paper can absorb. That's why there's only so far I'm going to be able to take this. But when it gets to that point, what I do is I start using drier paint, and then I like a circle, I get smaller and smaller and smaller as I'm adding color, the darker values. Now I'm going to grab yellow. You know, it's funny too. I think there's a point when you first start painting, and this is to me why it's really hard to, you know, you'll start painting and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm just not feeling it. So you quit. But sometimes it takes a little, let me try to turn it more that way. There we go. Sometimes it just takes a little while to get into the groove of painting. And now I'm really, there we go. I have to get my little logo. You're probably seeing my little logo in the corner right here. I need to get that off. Sorry about that. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and dry it. Let's see, I have a very comfy chair. Well, my husband keeps trying to talk me into getting a new one, and I've had the chair that I have forever, and it's a little squeaky, and I could have a more comfortable one. So now that I've kind of got the basic, I have a lot to do in there, but it is the basic value that I need so that I can go in and finish this area. Now I know how dark it needs to be. Oops. And even though technically I'm seeing it, I mean, I'm looking at the image, value is a really hard thing to get right. Everything next to it affects what you're seeing next to that particular thing. So as you darken things, it makes other things look lighter, just like how bright now that edge of that petal looks, because now I have those really dark areas. Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited to get the shadow in here. Okay, that's dry enough that I can work over in this area now, because I'm going to stay away from there. Okay, let's zoom back in. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm just wetting it. I'm staying away from there, and I won't get a line. If I do, I'll just soften it out, but I want to stay away from the edge because I don't want anything to bleed back over into this area. Isn't it lovely how you can keep painting over something and those colors have not moved? You cannot do that with opaque colors. Plus, they'd get muddy if you kept trying to do this. Okay, so going to pick up some yellow, some of my yellow. See how I'm kind of pulling back that way? I don't want it to go too far over there. I want to keep that white area. Okay. Now, I'm going to pick up some of that magenta. I'm going to make it pretty watery because I don't want to go too dark. So I'm kind of moving it around again. You see how my brush, the tip of my brush, is holding that color. Now I'm going to pick up, I am running I'm completely running out of areas on my palette. I'm picking up some of that phthalo blue. I just dropped a little bit right in there. And again, my brush is barely touching the surface. Let's see a little bit more of that. There we go. I'm barely touching that surface. And it'll all smooth out too. And then of course I have to kind of soften that edge a little bit. Barely touching the surface. Okay, it's getting darker. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull my palette forward. I don't know if you can see this. So I'm going to grab some pretty thick magenta. It's like right here. And I'm going to hit my paper towel. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is start here and pull down. I'm going to get a little bit more. Not going to let go of my brush until right about there. So that needs to be thicker. I'm wetting my brush right along the side. Pick up some of that purple. And some of the magenta. Grab some of that blue. So I'm not getting as vibrant dark purples as I could, like say had I have used ultramarine blue, which tend to lean towards red, but it's actually really cool because the purple I'm creating is kind of a dusky purple, and I think that's just perfect. So again, I wasn't worried about it because this is definitely, on all these light areas, it's going to be about bright and darker values and complementary colors, which is going to be the purple and the yellow and the red and the green, which are my favorite complements. So I'm adding just a little bit of water right there. And I added just a little bit of blue. And a little bit more magenta. And I'm still not dark enough over there. So again, I'm getting the thick paint. And I'm going to try to get a line in here and hoping that it will really spread out. And then another, and then I'm gonna right in the center of that one again. Oh, that's really coming together. A little bit of that dusky purple. And right along that area, right there. Oh, look what I got. I was so focused on that, I didn't see the fact that that was bleeding. Why? Because I said I wasn't going to go over there. I wasn't going to do that. And I did, so now I have to dry it. I think I caught it just in time. I am so happy with this. Just think how that's going to look too when I add in all the yellows in there. Kind of warm up. Right now that little blossom or bud is really, really cool. So I want to make it warm. And that is just going to glow so beautifully when I get those colors in those petals. Okay. I think that's pretty dry. But now what I want to do is I want to soften that edge right there. And I feel okay doing this, even though it's not, horribly dry. It's also going to help me really soften that edge. So let's zoom back in. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit more. Okay, see how I have a line there now? I don't want that. Okay, so I have to get rid of that. So I've got my paper towel. I've got my small number 2 scrubber brush. And I'm just going to lift that line out. Again, I'm barely touching that paper, and I'm trying to make sure that it's not making a white line. Ooh, look what that did. Ooh, and see, I have kind of an even line right there. So what I'm doing is just taking some off of the top. Just kind of, I'm going to kind of blend that out a little bit more. I might have to make it a little bit bigger too. But I'm not really hurting the paper, so I can definitely go back in there. I know I can go back in there. And let's pull out a little bit right here. And just a hair right here. Because it's almost kind of like the shadow is kind of like that. Yeah, remember when I was talking about, well, if that little edge of the water ends up showing up, I'll just soften it. Now I'm going to go ahead and fix that little area. But now I'm going to get, this is my favorite one. You can tell I've had it forever. I wrapped tape around the top and then cut it so I could have a really tiny scrub brush so I could get into really tight areas. Almost gone. Yay! And, oh, that was just a piece of, little bit of the paper. Perfect. Now that area is nice and soft. I want to soften this a little bit too. Okay, now I've done that. So now I'm going to use a 0. Ooh, must have had something on that. Just softening those edges, and I think I took a little bit too much away from this top area. I'm just kind of putting it back now. There we go. Okay, let me dry that again. Oops. I think what's bugging me about this area is there's not enough yellow in it. But that area is beautiful. And it still needs to be just a little bit darker. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some clean yellow. I'm going to clean up an area on my palette so I can get some clean yellow. Oh, there we go. And it needs a little bit more magenta. Just don't have the value quite there yet. But you know what? I'd rather take my time and just not feel like I've completely messed it up. It's just a stunning, beautiful petal. And that light is just hitting it so wonderfully. I just don't want to lose that. And that's what that needed. There we go, much better. So hopefully you could see what a difference it made once I added some more color right in there, and I added a little bit more in there. That made a huge difference. Now it really looks like it's coming forward. Just didn't feel there was quite enough color in there. And one more little area. And see now, like I was saying earlier, there's so much paint and so many layers that I can just go ahead and add it dry now. And to me, that is the difference between an area that's finished and an area that isn't. It seemed like it took forever for me to get those values right up. And I guess there's some artists that can do it right away, and I'm impressed if they can. But on the other hand, when you build them slowly like that, it almost feels like stained glass. All right. I'm not touching that anymore. Okay, let's make sure that's dry, and then I'm going to work on this area, and then I think I'll stop. I'm going to do a little bit more right there, and then I think I'll stop. I hope you all found this interesting. Okay, well, my brushes got out of order. Okay, so I am not going to wet this little inner area. I'm just picking up some of the magenta that I've added some yellow to. And here's, I'm going to do just kind of what I did over there. I'm just blending it out. Now I'm going to get some yellow. And wow, look at how that just kind of really jumps out. Isn't that pretty how I've used that dark value right there, that purple, and I've made this a little bit more yellow, this red. I've warmed it up, and because that purple is so cool, it's doing a couple things. It's changing the, or it's really making it pop because it's a word I'm trying to think. Okay, what's the word I'm trying? Complementary colors. You'd think I've said that a million times, right? So I've got complementary colors that are helping your eye, making each one of those colors really stand out. And the darker value. Now I think at this point I'll be able to dry it and go in there and I can adjust the values with my scrubber brushes. I think I'll make the cutoff right there. Yep. Just kind of softening that edge a little bit. Oh, and I looks like crept back up in there again. My bad. So I'll have to fix that. Okay, I think I'll dry it and then scrub out those little areas. I am so happy with this. I was really nervous about wrecking this, trying to talk and explain to you what I was doing, but it's turned out very well. Okay. All right. So I must say, if I were going to paint on this and make an edge, I would have made sure that was even drier. But you know what? This is probably the exception, is when you're pulling out some highlights. As long as you make sure you pick that water up, you're okay. I'm going to go back to my smaller one. And again, when you're scrubbing, take your time, go slow. Just kind of look at it like you're actually painting. Ooh, let me go back to my smaller one and fix this little area right here. Okay. Actually, I'm going to use my giant scrubber brush. It's pretty big. It's number 12. Lots of water. And then I can just kind of brush over the area and just soften it. Yep. The big scrubber brushes are pretty soft. I'm not really picking up a lot of paint. I'm just kind of softening. Oop. Got to zoom back in. Okay, now while it's completely wet though, I don't want everything to look exactly the same brightness, so okay, that looks a little better. Actually, I'm going to pick up some yellow. Okay. Right. I think I'm going to stop there. I'm just going to let everything really dry. But I'm pretty happy with it. I think once I get over into this area, and it's, you know, if you're looking up at the image, it's really, really dark, and it's kind of, there's like blues and some purples in there. This is going to stand out even more, so I'm excited to move over into here, but I think I need to take a break. I'm not sure how long I've been painting, but I think it's been a couple hours. Whoops, so I'm going to go ahead and stop. And let's see, go back to the front. Hey everybody. Does anybody have any questions about what I've been painting? Because I can answer some questions. If not, I'll just well, you know, takes about, what is it? About 10 seconds, you know, that we have a delay, just like a TV delay, but okay, that's how that's how I do my backgrounds. So I have a lot of work to do. And when I go, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of put a couple of initial washes right in that area. And it's probably not going to be today, but maybe tomorrow. And I think that once I get some initial washes there, then I will do a live stream again. And that way you can see how I'm going to build those dark colors. And honestly, I'm not even quite sure how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to be thinking about this for the rest of the day. And again, I may come back later and start adding in some, you know, little bit more layers at a time. But I think I'm going to need to do that by myself and then come back so you can see me building those darker colors. But that's going to be an even more complicated area for me. So this was a lot of fun. I can't believe how many people were watching. That was pretty exciting. So it's almost like watching paint dry, except for watching fun paint dry. So okay, I'm gonna go ahead and go. And also too, once I let this go, I'll be on and off of Facebook. So if you have any questions, you can ask me on Facebook on our Watercolors That Glow group. So thank you everybody for watching me. And again, I'm gonna try to live stream tomorrow. So I will see you. Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.